There are a few quick pros and cons for rent-to-rent serviced accommodation. The first pro tip is it's relatively cheap to start, especially in comparison to the other property strategies out there. You can get started and take your first unit on with between £5,000 and £10,000, and that's nationwide. This is con number one. So the problem with rent to SA is it doesn't work everywhere. The area has to have some sort of demand. It has to have a reason why people are going to come and stay in the area. So if you're in a really derelict village with nothing around for miles, it's just not going to work. Pro number two is it's relatively low risk. So the advantage of rent to SA is you're only managing the asset, you're not buying the asset. So if it doesn't work out and it's not as profitable or doesn't cash flow as you initially planned, you could just quite simply enter the break clause and give the property back to the landlord. So the risk is very low in comparison to other strategies out there. The second con with the rent to SA model is it's now heavily saturated. So a few years ago when the model first started picking up traction, it was quite easy to go out there and get units. Now it's so difficult because there's so many operators, and you're not just competing with the operators to take the units on, you're then competing with them to try and fill your units. So because it's very saturated, you really need a unit that stands out now in comparison to what you could have got away with a few years ago. The third and final pro is cash flow. SA is super good for cash flow, by far the best cash flowing model in the property investment industry because people are paying on a nightly rate. So when there's like events on, or if you've got like a big unit, you can really up the price and you're going to be making considerable amounts more than the rent would have initially been. The third and final con, and it's not really a con but it's one of them things, is because you're only controlling the asset, you don't really have the full power. So if the landlord comes in and says, I'm selling the property or I want to take it back, there isn't really much you can do about it. And it can cause problems if you have future bookings and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, there's a few pros and cons. If I've missed any, comment below and I can do a further video on it.